Hello, 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 hello. It's me, and I'm back for another Tuesday Reviews Day, and I have a new deck to show you. Oh no, my internet's doing something weird. So, with our new deck, we are continuing with our theme of Kransmas in July. So, here is my third deck. Saw the Wild Unknown Tarot. Last week we saw the Wild Unknown. Oh, I don't like this at all. And this time we have the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck. So let's give this deck a little look-see. So this deck is so pretty. This deck is very, very pretty. It's round, which I love. I love round things. Everybody who's like online right now, we've just entered the age of Jimothy. And so like everybody knows Jimothy right now, and he's very, very round. And so you guys have seen me cry over little things. I also cry over things that are incredibly round, especially if it's like a cat or like a cow or just like a really fat animal. And I call them rounds. So I love a round deck. So here we go. So this is Kim Krans's beautiful artwork, her gorgeous, gorgeous mark making. But this deck incorporates collage as well as her drawing in watercolor. So we get these just gorgeous stories being told in each of these decks. So like here's like a beautiful like watercolor owl, but I think we also have like some kind of like stars that have been collaged in there. Like some are just drawn, like this one here. Beautiful, like look at that. So this again, Kim Krans, dots. This is all dots creating this asphalt. Just imagine how many hours she was just sitting there with a fine tipped pen just going ding, 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 right? Like, I love this. But here we have a really cool image that's been collaged in with a watercolor drawing. So this deck has a lot more color to it than the other two that we've seen because she's using a lot of these images, eyeballs, pearls, animals, jewels. She gets in a lot of really interesting shapes, and the way she incorporates them into her drawing. I mean, come on. Look at that. How beautifully integrated everything is in that one. Oh, I love it so much. So this deck is all about archetypes. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that most of you do, archetypes is a term that was coined by a psychologist called Carl Jung, who was very cool and had a lot of really interesting metaphysical ideas. Like he kind of went off the map for a while and came back with just like some amazing ideas. And so while he introduced the idea of archetypes into psychology, it's not like he invented them. He's simply identifying and naming something that has always been there. So archetypes are like patterns. They're certain characters or places, right? So as we go through the human experience or as we tell stories, there are certain characters that show up, like the hero or the witch, maiden, mother, crone, father, son, the child, the self. These are all things that we explore, right? So, you know, things like, you know, the victim, the queen. So as we go through our lives, we tend to embody certain patterns, right? Or when we write a story, characters have certain patterns and trajectories that we explore. And so those are archetypes, but it's not just a character, right? A character pattern. There's also places like the castle, places, there's objects. I think she has this separated into 4 suits, and I think it's like the character archetypes, places, objects, and initiations. Because so Kim Krans is also, in addition to archetypes, she's really into alchemy, and which is what the next deck is going to be on. And so with these initiations, it's like she's really looking into the archetypes of alchemy, or like the kiss being an initiation into like romance or love or eroticism, you know. So it's just a really, really interesting deck. So I love to use this deck for finding themes. Like if I have a client who is exploring a part of themselves, I like to use this deck. If I have a client where they're doing a year ahead, I really like to pull from here to find the theme for their year ahead. Yesterday, so actually I've just started developing a past life exploration reading. So I've been doing a hypnotherapy course, and with my friend Michelle, it's Michelle Multidimensional, hit her up. She's an amazing teacher. So I took a hypnotherapy certification from her over this winter. And part of what we did was parallel life exploration, also known as past life regression. It just depends on whether or not you think of time as linear or non-linear. So I started developing, in addition to a hypnotherapeutic, because not everybody feels comfortable going into hypnotherapy, right? Some people, that doesn't feel safe. And so there are ways to go into parallel lives or past lives, as it were, with your eyes open, being awake, and we can do that with the cards. And I've been kind of exploring how I might do that, and I've been experimenting with some friends. And so as I've been doing that, I've been including this deck because as we look at, so like if we're thinking about like the Akashic records, we're looking at records, we're looking at stories from past lives that maybe we're still exploring in this life. And understanding archetypes can help us carry the lessons from one experience into this experience, if that's something you're into, right? So beautiful, beautiful artwork, a lot of uses for this deck. Great altar cards for, again, exploring themes. So if you're looking at thematics and overarching stories, this is a really great deck to incorporate on your altar, in a personal reading, in readings with a client. Again, so much color in this deck. I love how she's using color in this deck. And like, wait, this card that we just looked at, Anima Mundi, like, oh, look at all the images she's collaged in here. It's just so cool. I love how she's combined the two here. It's just really, really neat. So this deck also, interestingly for me, is a deck that my husband and I joke is actually his deck because it's very, very responsive to him. So the thing with this deck is that because she's round, she's very hard to shuffle, right? So if you're somebody who is a bridge shuffler, you might just want to come up with a different plan. But like, I'm a side shuffler, so it's really, I like to just kind of this, but this deck, it wants to stay in like chunks. And so shuffling it carefully can get a little messy. So she's a little unruly to shuffle. That's something that you really, really want to know. It's kind of the price for the interesting shape and the interesting aesthetic, especially as you'll see with the alchemy deck next week. But so my husband, he is very, very into numbers, right? Like part of how he receives psychic information is mathematically. One of his degrees is in math. and he's just a whiz at mental math and numbers. And so I noticed that when I was working with this deck, he would shout out a number, and I would just pull from the top and count. And whatever card that was wound up being the perfect card for whatever reading I was doing. And so like, even like he's in the bathtub, you know, in another room, and I'm maybe on a Zoom with the client, and I suddenly just hear him shout 22, and it winds up being like the perfect card. So he told me today that shuffle and pull a card, but also choose card number 13. So that's what we're going to do for our reading today. So let's give her a little shuffle-roo. And I feel like just already this card wants to come out. Ooh, the Bardo. I love this card. Okay. And now I'm going to choose the 13th from the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and here's number 13. It's, ooh, what is this one? It's the Womb. These cards kind of go together. Okay, so very, very interesting. So again, really large packaging. So you get a nice hefty book. And she writes a lot about herself in here, a lot about archetypes, like how she got to, like what her journey was, how she got to archetypes. So there's a lot of really interesting information in here, some interesting spreads. But what's really, really cool is that in addition to a reading for the card, we're getting when in balance, when imbalanced. You also get like some little activities, like in order to go deeper, here's a poem to read, here's a movie to watch, here's a song to listen to. And then she's just got some interesting wisdom on each side of the page, right? So it's also, this book is easier to use because she actually puts all the cards separately in the contents. Last time it was just like, here's the suits, good luck. So this book is a lot more, it's a lot less frustrating to use. So I'm going to go first with the Bardo, which is under the places, I believe. No, I think it's the Womb is a place, so 155, and the Bardo might be, oh, it's 163, so they're right next to each other. So let's start here with 163. I'm going to start with the Bardo, the liminal, the in-between, the transition, right? So very, very Diana. It is said that the Bardo is a place between this life and the next, a liminal realm through which souls pass. Envisioning this inherently mysterious space creates the potential for us to rise above the concerns of this world and see our relationships through a cosmic and timeless lens. We may receive messages from those who are no longer with us, or see visions of lives not yet lived. In the Bardo, there is potential to forgive the unforgivable, to say the unsaid, to see the unseen, to love the unloved, and to let go of all the things that cause us pain. The Bardo suspends us in suspiciousness just long enough for us to open to higher wisdom. The energy does not belong to Earth as we know it, but rather to the cosmic network of which we are a single thread. So when light or imbalanced, spaciousness, grace, forgiveness, truth. When dark, torment, dislocation, hallucination, transience. In order to go deeper, read the Book of the Dead or The Lament of the Dead by James Hillman and Sonu Shamdansi. And then the wisdom here, the Bardo is not to be feared. The advantage of this energy is by recognizing what needs to be resolved. Trust that there is a message from you from beyond. Who is speaking? Go ahead and listen. this is amazing. And wow, for me personally, because I actually have been speaking with a prospective client who, for a mediumship reading, who's kind of not sure about things. So if she's watching this, oh my gosh. When the veil between this life and the next is thinned, energy is stirred. This allows for remarkable healing and vision. So the bardo, oh my goodness. And then the womb is just 155. Here we go. The nest, the belly, the origin. Everything has an origin story. The womb archetype asks us to contemplate the beginning beyond the beginning. The mother beyond the mother. And I was literally just talking about using this deck for parallel lives. So if you're interested in any past or parallel lives, please hit me up. Oh my God. The mother beyond the mother. In a world that often negates and necessity of feminine principles, this card returns. Oh my God, my internet keeps cutting out. That never happens. And I have T-Mobile. I have really good internet. The mother of us all. She is the life-giving force that forgives and cherishes even the most wounded and disparate soul. No matter how lost you are, the womb awaits for you to return to help you heal and grow. This card is a call to keep things simple, to return, to be reborn in the name of love. The womb is everywhere. It is beyond gender. It is beyond time. We are within it as it is within us. When balance, nourishment, harmony, warmth, love, when dark, stricken, ecological crisis, infertility, imbalance. Gustave Courbet's The Origin of the World is something to look at if you want to go deeper. What would honoring the feminine look like to you? Where would you begin? Imagining yourself as loved is a good place to start. And consider that Mother Earth must also have a mother. Imagine her. Very interesting, very deep. So let's talk about these two cards, right? I think there's a very clear story. We're talking about death and rebirth here, right? The bardo is the liminal space. Death and rebirth is a liminal space. These are spaces that you pass through. It's interesting that she has these under places, because I thought the bardo could be an initiation as well, right? In order for us, this is really interesting, because literally this was the theme of a reading that I did not too long ago. In order for us to grow, we have to understand that our lives go in circles and cycles, right? And we have our circular cards. Things are birthed and they have their moment, they bloom, and then they pass away. And then new things rebirth. And in that space between the death of one version of you and the birth of a new version of you, we have the void. When you're passing into the bardo, you pass through the bardo and you go into the womb, right? There are times in our lives where we identify with who we are, or what our job is, or what our talents are, or what our home life is like. Just there's something about our life and we identify with it so hard. But the nature of life is movement. It is an ever unfolding, I want to cry. It is an ever unfolding now. Nothing can stay the same. And we know that. Our soul knows that. And so when our soul starts to tell us that it's time for us to be the new version of ourselves, for us to move on with the next phase of our blueprint or our pattern, what we came here to explore. When it's time to go into that next phase, we often become depressed. We often feel this resistance. We often feel fear. We're like, oh my God, no, no, I can't, right? Like we want to hold on to this thing, even if we know that it's no longer serving us, even if we know that we're beyond it or we don't need it, or it's no longer the right thing for us, whether it's a relationship or a job or a habit or like, you know, whatever that pattern might happen to be. Because it's like we don't know who we are. What if instead you recontextualized it as I'm in the womb, right? A caterpillar is a caterpillar, but its blueprint is the butterfly. And in order to become that, it has to stop being a caterpillar and it has to go back into the womb, that cocoon, right? And then it emerges. What if we are the same, only we don't have this physical, like, because our physical body isn't necessarily changing, like we're not necessarily turning into goo and taking on another form. But the fact is that we metamorphosize over and over and over throughout our lives. We should. That is, let me contextualize that. There are some souls who are here to experience one thing, and their souls need to have it kept simple because they are very young souls. But most of us are here to learn and grow and change by having several cycles throughout our life. And so often we want to judge ourselves for those spaces of pause. After the old identity has died away and we've gone through that liminal space, liminal means temporary. Liminal means we're passing through death and rebirth. The space between death and rebirth is the womb, where we need to gestate, we need to marinate, we need to float around and just kind of be for a while. And often because I think we live in a society that values productivity and like work, and we're showing our merit by constantly producing, constantly being in a season of harvest. We're planting seeds and we're harvesting. We're planting seeds and we're harvesting. And we want to skip those places of waiting and patience and growing. It's like we want to skip summer and winter. You know, we can't do that. That's not nature. The womb. We need to be in the womb. So instead of saying, oh, I'm lazy, I can't get up out of bed, or, oh my God, I don't want to do anything today, I've lost my motivation. What if you're in the womb? What if there's something new in you being created? You've had your identity, that identity is falling away. And it's the ego that wants to grab at it. It's the ego that wants to say, oh, but this was mine, and I want this to happen on my terms or my timeline, or, you know, that kind of thing, like safety nets, right? I was literally talking to a friend about this yesterday. We want to have those safety nets. But instead, in order for creation to run its course, its cycle in a healthy way, we need to have that space of rest. We need to tune in to that divine feminine. No, and this is like beyond gender, right? Of just, I need to care for myself while I create the next part of me that's going to go and do. Right? And don't shame yourself for that. Understand this is nature. This is circles, cycles. This is how we are formed. This is what life is, right? And you can look out in nature all over the place and see it happening. You know, you have seeds that are in the ground gestating before they become a sprout. And then that sprout becomes a tree. The blueprint was always the tree, you know? Or like, you know, was Aristotle and the acorn, right? You bury the acorn, it's meant to become a tree, right? But it comes through all of these phases first, and you have to treat it well, and you have to allow space for things to happen. But it has to first be buried in the darkness, nurtured and tended to and cared for before it can go into the sprout, which is its next highest expression. And that sprout needs to be cared for in order to become a sapling, which is its next highest expression. And then that sapling becomes a tree, which grows stronger and stronger and stronger as it is tended to and cared for and loved. So I think that is our message for today. I'm feeling very, very, very complete here. If you have any questions, any corners that you need polished off, or if you are interested in parallel life, either hypnotherapy or a deck reading, please hit me up here or on Instagram at the Lydian Lantern. I love you all so, so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for watching. Have a great week. Bye.